How do you do that?
Oh, well, that's acting. I mean, it is. That's what I like to do. That's total immersion into possibility. What a life I could imagine I lived. And that's infinitely interesting to me. And you can't, there's no bottom to it. I read a lot of scripts. And my heart starts to race at some point when I have when I read a character that I want to do. And so that's the recognition of a like soul or something in there that I want to say.
I think that we couldn't survive a second if we weren't able to act. That acting is a survival mechanism, and it's a social unguent, and it's a lubricant. And we act to save our lives, actually, every day.
You got to be sure it's what you really want, and if it's what you really want, you do it, period. Period. Any place, anywhere, doesn't matter who's there, how much money, who's going to see it. Any opportunity you have to act, you take, period. And then you're an actor, you know what I mean?
Even before I went to drama school, there was a sense for me that I really would every day think about what's one thing that I can do, at least one thing that I can do that can better me, further my goals of wanting to be a great actor. So whether it was, watch these 3 movies, read this book, read this, read one chapter of a Stanislavski book, read this, find an interview, take a headshot, write a little bit of a movie. Every day I would try to, tick it off the list. Just one thing that could make me feel like I was taking a step forward. And then, just I think doing your own things is really helpful because there's so much freedom in that. That's really how I started, which is me and my friends just making movies together. Back then we had the 2 VCRs and doing trying to edit it that way. But now, feature films are made on iPhones. So there really is no excuse to not be working. And it's only the doing that really teaches you, that makes you more comfortable.
I think a lot of people, I know people come up to me and say, hey man, I want to do what you, I want to be an actor, and how can I be an actor? And I go, do you want to be an actor, or do you want to be a star or a celebrity? Or like, well, I'm like, are you acting right now? Are you in anything? Are you in plays? Are you auditioning for plays? Do you read plays? Are you reading scripts? Or do you go to Sam French and grab stuff and see what you can work on? I'm like, that's all working. That's all doing acting work. Now, yes, maybe you're not on a TV show or somebody hasn't put you in a film, but if you think that's the only way acting happens, it's probably going to be 1 or 2 things are going to happen. You're never going to get that shot, or you're going to get that shot and then very quickly they're going to see that you're this deep and you have nothing to bring to the game.
First and foremost, if you can wake up without wanting to do this. You have one morning where you wake up and go, I don't really want to do this. I would say get out, because it's way too difficult. Somebody could ask me, are there moments of that being defined as being discouraged? And I would go, no, everybody's discouraged. Everybody calls home and goes, I don't know if, I should become a rocket scientist, if I should, as a woman, continue in this world of men and corporate spectrums or law or medicine or what have you. People all get discouraged, including myself, and asking mom and dad if I should come back home very early in my journey out here. But I think in terms of the representation part, I decided to not, and this is really my wisdom to them, to not really worry about it. My thought was, if it's looked like it was easier for me than it was because I really pressed hard at the craft, the work, the acting classes, making sure that I was in martial arts. If I could add that to the repertoire box, or the box of tools that I could dig into, if I needed to work on the piano, because one day I could play a character where I played the piano, just work on the craft.
Understanding the craft of acting helps prepare actors for new environments, new experiences, gives you a toolkit when you don't have inspiration or you're not inspired by something. At least you have a craft that you can fall back on. I studied the craft of acting before I entered it, and it's been enormously helpful to me. I have nothing to compare it to because my experience was always that I had training.
Firstly, just having a scene partner and understanding what it means to work with one another was a big part of the foundation. Just the improvisational work, acting opposite another person, and being able to hold what they gave you and give them something back. That give and take was greatly encouraged, and requires obviously a lot of patience and compassion and mindfulness.
We as human beings, we're not as individual as we think we are.
Right.
And that's what allows for us to experience empathy when we watch things. So for me, going to school and going to get acting training was about that, learning more than what my personal experience would offer, and availing myself to that, and doing the research and the technical preparation, and then just breathing and letting God walk through the door.
We become the experts because we're living the interior lives of the characters, as well as the, honoring the words on the page. That's not always the case. I would say that we're presented 3/4 of the time with blueprints. There's huge holes in the story, plot lines, character development, and we have to fill a lot more of that in.
I was given writing on the page that absolutely dictated where I would go. You don't always get that. When writing is not good, you have to fill in the blanks. And I always say the actors who should get the awards are the actors who have to make bad work good. They're the ones, literally, because that's when you have to work overtime.
I read that backstory all the time. So it was like putting information into my body and building that inner life, building the fabric, the soul, the cells of the character. This was my primary source of creating who she was, meaning from reality and not from opinions. I didn't want anybody's opinion. I wanted to rely on myself and trust myself as an actress to do the work and to become.
Did you want to know anything that wasn't in the script?
No. I get asked that question a lot. How did you prepare for the role? And my answer is pretty stock. I read the script.
Right, that's why I said it.
Yeah. Because there isn't a whole lot to... I mean, if you're going to play somebody who is extant, some living person, then you've got to learn who they are. Mannerisms, look, all of that. You want to get it down to...
Jamie Foxx, Ray Charles.
There you go. Right. But if you're creating a character, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to create it, I mean.
Nobody knows but you.
The writer knows.
Yeah, well, right, but he gives it to you.
But he's done it, yeah. He's done all the work.
Yeah.
So you just channel it.
Yeah, but there's the other end of that, which you know. I mean, what do I know? It is this notion that the writer or the director knows the reason he hired you is you'll take it off the page.
Yes.
And that's where a lifetime of work comes in. Take it off the page.
Take it off the page.
Yeah. And surprise us and let us know you own the part.
And you could give that same part to 24 actors.
You go into a scene, you have 16 different ways to tell the truth. When you're stuck, sometimes you're just trying to protect from telling a lie. Not near as fun. Sometimes you're just like, man, I'm not feeling it. I just feel like I've got to connect the dots, and that's all I really can do. I don't have the song. I don't feel myself in flight. Now, when it's worked, and what I try to find now is from the inside out, get the guy's monologue. And this is something that's kind of come to me and really helped me in the last couple of years. Get the guy's monologue, then I can have the dialogue. Then I can do a scene if I got the monologue. If I know what's the Socratic dialogue of the man that I'm playing, then have the dialogue. And it's not about the words, obviously. And then I was able to just, when I do my job better, be more in that moment, not anticipate. But also when I said impasse earlier, catch. I love it when you catch somebody in a scene. I love entrances and exits. I love doing all the work about, let's backload about where the guy's coming from and why, how he got here, and where's he going. I love to finish scenes. Anytime there's the old ... finish it out, write it out. Expound, just finish, right? And I write a lot on scripts, write way more than I ever actually say, but I have it. It loosens me up on the entrance and the exit. And I like it when I'm seeing actors, and I think I like my work best when I'm feeling like I'm being caught.
There's a tightrope that I walk between this crippling fear and this almost arrogant confidence, right? Where you always feel like, oh, I'm going to be terrible in this. It's going to be, I'm going to be found out, like you said. And then also you have to almost have this confidence and this arrogance to say, I understand this character. I'm fighting for these choices. And you have to, and they balance out. Because otherwise, I guess, if you didn't have that kind of confidence that you could kind of throw in there, you would never get out of the room and you would never make any kind of risky choice with a scene or with a performance. But also, if you were just arrogant, you wouldn't really be able to listen to other people, I think.
I think there's always something to overcome, mostly within myself, I find, actually. It's never an external thing. It's usually something I'm holding myself back, or some fear that I have of failure or of rejection, or that's the auditioning process is basically a process of being rejected over and over and over and over and over again until you either give up or something breaks and you get an opportunity. But yeah, it's having to have a strong enough sense of oneself to keep facing possible rejection and failure. That's every day, and that's the worst. It's the worst and the best, because what it reveals to you is that even after being rejected or failing or falling flat on your face, that you don't die usually, but you get given another level of kind of confidence and awareness that things don't fall apart, actually, and that failure and rejection can be quite wonderful and quite, I don't know, builds up your self-esteem in a weird way.
I got hired. I'd done a series of national auditions out of college, and I got hired by the Phoenix Theater Company doing 3 plays on Broadway. Wow. And I was an understudy for 3 of the leads. In the first show, which was a Congreve restoration comedy, right. The leading lady was fired just before opening night.
No. Oh my gosh.
But
you were ready.
I went on with no understudy rehearsal. I had no rehearsal.
God. So you just went out there and
I went out there, and for some reason, because I was so new, I was so hungry, I was so green, I'd learned all the lines. I was, you just, you kind of want a chance to, in this business, nobody knows what you can do until you can do it.
Till you prove yourself.
Right, right. So as an understudy in my first job, it was really frustrating. But it was a great lesson because someone's, misfortune was my chance.
Yeah.
And it also was another great lesson because I went from the garret dressing room of Jenny the maid down to the star dressing room.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's so cool. But then after that show was over and we went on to the second show, I went back to my garret dressing room.
Oh my gosh.
So I thought that was a very good lesson.
I had about 1.5 years before we started shooting. And so I spent that time, it feels like climbing Mount Everest. It's just so mammoth of a task. So for me, I just had to take it one step at a time, and it started with absorbing everything. I watched every bit of footage that's out there. I listened to every interview of his throughout his entire career, and read every book that was written on his life. And then I started to break it up into pieces. So it was figuring out how his voice changed over the years, and obsessing about that. It became this 2-year obsession where I put the rest of my life on pause, and I went through every bit of his being like that, from his spiritual evolution to the way that he moved and how that changed over the years. And I got the call from Baz, and it was excitement and exhilaration followed immediately by, I gotta get
time to turn up. Yeah,
this is the responsibility is such a weight that for 2 years, I woke up every day around 3 or 4 in the morning with my heart pounding, and I couldn't go back to sleep, and I just got to work at that time.
You spend months preparing these characters. I really would like working that way, like having the time to prepare and to try to understand who they are. The months preparing a character, it depends on what the movie is. I will prepare one way or another, but I always see it as making a soup, where you are finding all the ingredients and you let it boil for months, and just is there and is becoming part of you, and you are understanding it, like not just intellectually, like you have to process it from another place. And I think this doesn't happen unless you have those months of preparing that character.
Constantly sort of always very prepared like that. I think there's part of it in me where I kind of recognize the absurdity of what I'm doing, and the only way that I can move past the absurdity of it is to commit to it in a place where no one can say that it's absurd anymore. I have this strong belief in the unconscious, that it is driving us. It's like this massive river that we're floating on, and we're sort of unaware, obviously, sometimes of where we're going. I don't think we have much control over it, because that brings in the question of like fate, destiny, and free will. But I believe that there's a way in which you can kind of hop onto in performance as an actor, like onto another river a little bit. If you work hard enough, you kind of like move your unconscious into a space. But that takes kind of grinding at the world that you know normally and pushing it into a place that is filled with the molecules of all the things you've collected along the way. Meaning, like, my preparation for something like Southpaw was 5 months, around boxers all the time, going to every fight that I could, researching the history of what my character had gone through, going to orphanages and talking to people in the system, and being there and picking up that energy, like picking it all up and trying to sort of exist in it.
I always come in so open and willing and devoted. I really think, the intensity of the work and the relationship requires the devotion, and requires the ability to be malleable, yet to still speak up and not be sort of a doormat, but also adapt. So much of it is adapting, because they're all different, and trying to come in there with what I do, which is I bring my emotions and my ideas, but then I'm in your world and I want to help create your world, and I want to tell your story. Let's go.
Getting help, hiring help, getting an acting coach, like I want to do that. Like I want to get to like go in and transform and improve, and because just if you have the access, do it. Like I would love to do that level of work so that I could become a transformational actor, and I just want to grow. And part of that has to do with, yes, size of part, or who's carrying that art. That has something to do with it for sure. But I think the other part is really about committing to working to be and play characters, and really kind of take the audience on a journey. So that's what I would love to do. And you could do that in certain ways anyway, for sure, without having to be the first person on a call sheet. And I've tried to do that to this point, but I would like to have sitting down, having these meetings and go, oh, we're shooting that in August. Let me get ready in my own way.
I love doing it, but it did take a lot of practice. I had to really do it 5,000 times to get everything down and everything in place, and just do it and do it and do it.
Whatever you do as an actor is cumulative. It's about, so I say, go to art galleries, listen to music, know what's happening on the news in the world, and form opinions, develop your taste and judgment, so that when a quality piece of writing is put in front of you, your imagination, which you've nurtured, has something to bounce off.
You're lucky enough if you can manage to sort of hang on in there. What I did, and I think it was helpful, was every 4 years I'd go back, at least 3 or 4 years, I'd go back to the theatre, because I started off in the theatre. Theatre was my love and my ambition. What really was in the theatre, and I made made sure that I always went back to the theatre, and I think that sort of just helped deepen my whole career somehow, and made people think of me in a certain way as well.
Success is just focusing all your attention on the thing that you do and love without having a claim on an outcome. So, think about that. That's pretty cool. You are putting all your focus and attention on what you do. So, as an actor, it changed everything for me. I went, oh, I'm not here to get a job. I'm here to do a job. Subtle difference, enormous effect. Just think about the difference. If you only went in that room to focus on what you do, create a compelling character and present it, and that's it, and you walk away, you've done your job. Everything else is outside of your purview. It's not your decision to call you back, whatever. I used to do that. Once that happened, it was free. A weight lifted off my shoulders. It doesn't mean you don't do the work. There's no shortcut for the work. I've been doing this for 37 years. I can tell you, there is no shortcut. You have to do work. It's hard work. There's a lot of work. So you better love it.
If I saw it right now, I would tell you you're crazy if you thought that I would have to learn all of this stuff and then be ready, in such a quick... We didn't have very much time to prepare, but, when you do that, it's like anything else. There's some kind of muscle that gets stronger, and the more often you do it, the quicker you retain things. And of course, just understanding why you're saying what you're saying is always the best course of action.
I create a character, and it's all about the story of that character and creating almost an umbilical cord from myself to that piece of material. There's times, I am who I am. I'm constantly looking at life every day and people. So it is my point of view, but from that character. I'm discovering this character. How does he feel about things? It's my instincts, but I don't personally kind of re-stimulate painful experiences. I have found personally that it's made it difficult for me to not be there in the moment for myself. That the availability of emotion is greater for me when I've created it. I am the character, and I'm there in the moment, and whatever happens, happens. It's more available every take after take after take, and that's what works for me, the power of my own imagination and my own ability to believe. And I create everything to get myself to the point where I am that character, and I don't invalidate whatever choice or impulse that I have on the scene, whatever it is.
You have everybody in you. And people who really want to act and do it, can access all kinds of horrible things. And that's what we ask them to do, actors. We want them to channel murderers because we have murderous feelings and we want to see that played out. I mean, not to go too back into the ritual basis of the drama, but there is a need for people to embody these unspeakables and unimaginables. And so that's the actor's job. And I just think it's so that to directors, I want to say, don't just, I hate those meetings where you walk in, you sit down, and they just want to have a look at you. Well, then that's all they're going to get is a look at you. And a look at you is nothing. It's nothing. You got to imagine and see people's work, because people's work is where you'll find whether they can do this thing, can open you up to the hidden world of a character, to the stuff that is never explained, but is always layers your appreciation of the story, because that's why we're here, is to serve this entire story.
Denzel always drops a lot of gems. I mean, one of his famous quotes that I live by, especially now, is the universal stems from the specific. and like what you're doing, what you're saying, and what story you're trying to portray, just be as specific as possible. You know, it's all about the details, and everybody can relate to that in somehow. That's something that I kind of approach with the script that I'm doing now, and the story that I'm trying to show.
We are literally, physically one thing. If you just pull back physically and look at the planet Earth, we're part of one organism. This is how I see the physical world. And I accept that there are things in the physical world that are not as we perceive them. We all know since Einstein on that things are, to quote Shakespeare, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That how you look at a physical fact affects the facts. It's relative, Einstein's concept. It's a relative thought.
We fear the idea of personal change because we think that we have to sacrifice something to give something up. But human beings at our best are so inventive and creative and ingenious. And I think that when we use love and compassion as our guiding principles, we can create, develop, and implement systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings and to the environment. Now, I've been a scoundrel in my life. I've been selfish. I've been cruel at times, hard to work with, and ungrateful. But so many of you in this room have given me a second chance. And I think that's when we're at our best, when we support each other, not when we cancel each other out for past mistakes, but when we help each other to grow, when we educate each other, when we guide each other towards redemption. That is the best of humanity.
Thoughtfully examine the roles we play and how to best be of use and to be of service in a noble pursuit to make the world a better place. I believe that perfection is unattainable, but that doesn't stop us trying. And we should constantly be evolving, redefining, refining, predicting, analyzing, adapting to whatever the world throws at us, and in harmony with that world. And if one is passionate and committed in the noble pursuit of excellence within their chosen field, be that the arts, technology, science, humanitarianism, conservationism, then I would say one has a moral obligation and an ethical duty to be of service and to always strive to be part of the solution, not the problem. After all, it's a world that our children would inherit. That's worth being a part of. That speaks to me. Passion, action, noble intention creates progress. Passion creates progress.
Without commitment, you'll never start. But more importantly, without consistency, you'll never finish. It's not easy. If it was easy, there'd be no Kerry Washington. If it was easy, there'd be no Taraji Henson, P. Henson. If it were easy, there'd be no Octavia Spencer. But not only that, if it were easy, there'd be no Viola Davis. If it were easy, there'd be no Michael T. Williamson, no Stephen McKinley Henderson, no Russell Hornsby. If it were easy, there'd be no Denzel Washington. So keep working, keep striving, never give up, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. So keep moving, keep growing, keep learning. See you at work.